"Hire me for one night," said the Apache widow to Cowboy. "Let's start the story." The night was colder than usual for late autumn, the kind of cold that settled into a man's bones and reminded him that winter was riding down from the mountains with a hunger of its own. The small frontier town of Red Bluff lay quiet under a sky hammered with stars, its buildings shuttered, its lanterns dimmed, its people asleep, except for the few who had no choice but to keep moving. One such soul was the cowboy Clint Rourke, a man who lived mostly on horseback and kept to himself, carrying nothing but a weathered saddlebag and the ghosts of old wars. He guided his horse down the silent main street, boots dusty, eyes tired, thinking only of warmth, food, maybe a decent cot for the night. He did not expect anyone to call out to him, and yet, from the shadows near the abandoned smithy, a voice, soft, trembling, yet determined, broke the silence. "Cowboy." "Please wait." Clint stopped, sensing danger at first, but when the woman stepped into the moonlight, he realized it wasn't the kind of threat men usually fear. She was thin, dangerously thin, with high cheekbones, raven dark hair braided in the Apache way, and eyes that carried both fire and unbearable exhaustion. A small blanket lay wrapped around her shoulders, torn and patched by an unsteady hand. She looked like someone who had been pushed to the last edge of the world, yet still refused to step off. "I am sorry to stop you," she said, her voice quivering as she swallowed her pride, "but I have something to ask, something no mother should ever have to say." Clint dismounted slowly, not wanting to frighten her. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Has someone troubled you?" he asked, unsure why this woman was wandering alone at such a late hour. She shook her head, but he noticed her hands trembling. She fought to steady them, to appear strong, but her body betrayed her. "My daughter," she whispered, "has not eaten for 2 days. I cannot find work. The townspeople will not hire an Apache widow. They will not look at me, except with anger or suspicion. I have nothing left to give." Her throat tightened, and she forced herself to continue. "Cowboy, hire me for one night." "My daughter is starving," the words spilled out. Not seductive, not pleading for the wrong reasons, just raw, ragged desperation. She bowed her head, as if ashamed of even speaking. "Not for what men usually want. I mean, do not misunderstand. I know what such words sound like. I only mean I can clean, sew, cook, mend gear, tend your horse, anything. Any work you have, please, one night's pay. Just enough for my child." Clint felt something in his chest twist. He had seen hunger before, on battlefields, in burned-out settlements, in children who never had a chance at life. But hearing a mother speak like that, so close to breaking, it hit deeper than he expected. He studied her carefully. She was proud. He could see it in her posture, in the way she forced herself to stand tall, but pride had limits, and she had crossed hers long before she approached him. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Nahara," she said. "My daughter is Lani." She expected him to refuse. She braced for it. She had been turned away too many times. Instead, Clint nodded toward the horse. "Come with me, both of you. I'll pay you fair wages for the work you mentioned. And I ain't the type of man who expects anything improper from a woman trying to save her child." Nahara blinked in disbelief, then looked away quickly to hide tears she didn't want him to see. She led him to the edge of town, where an old barn leaned tiredly against the wind. Inside, wrapped in a thin quilt, curled a girl no older than 7, cheeks hollow, breathing shallow but steady. Lani opened her eyes when she heard footsteps, and Clint felt another twist in his chest. Children shouldn't look that hungry, nor that scared. Nahara knelt beside her daughter, brushing her hair back tenderly. "He's here to help us," she whispered. Lani stared at him, unsure. Clint reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a packet of hardtack, jerky, and a small tin of beans, supplies meant to last him days. But looking at the child, he didn't hesitate. "Here, little one," he said softly. Lani looked to her mother for permission. Nahara nodded. The girl ate slowly at first, as if afraid the food might disappear, then faster as her stomach urged her on. Nahara watched her with a mixture of relief and shame. "Thank you," she murmured. "You do not know what this means." Clint shrugged. "It's just food, ma'am." She shook her head. "To you, not to us." Clint nodded toward the barn. You said work. Well, my gear is worn, my coat needs stitching, and my horse could use a careful hand. You stay the night here, safe and warm. Tomorrow I'll take you both, somewhere better. Her eyes widened, fear and hope mixed together. Why would you do this? She asked. Because no one should be left to starve in a land with this much sky, he said, settling onto a crate. And because a mother shouldn't have to sell her dignity to keep her child alive. Nehara took a deep breath, steadying herself, then began sorting his gear, fixing torn straps with quiet skill. Clint watched her work, realizing she had lived a life of hardship. Yet every movement carried surprising grace. The barn was cold, but something warmer than fire grew between them, respect born from suffering, an unspoken understanding forged in the quiet hours of night. Outside, the wind howled, but inside the barn, the flickering lantern cast a soft glow across mother and child. Clint didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing: he wasn't going to ride away from them. Not now, not when they had no one else. And somewhere deep inside, a thought, dangerous, hopeful, took root. Maybe, just maybe, he had been led to Red Bluff for a reason. Morning seeped into the barn through cracks in the wood, painting thin lines of gold across the dirt floor. Clint opened his eyes to the quiet sound of humming, soft, melodic, distinctly Apache. Nehara was kneeling beside Lani, brushing the girl's hair as she prepared her for the day. The child looked better already, the faintest hint of color returning to her face after last night's meal. Clint sat up slowly, careful not to startle them, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something he hadn't expected. Peace. A fragile peace, yes, but unmistakable. He stood and stretched, then went to check on his horse. To his surprise, the animal was brushed, fed, and calmer than usual. Nehara stepped forward, hands clasped in front of her. Your horse was restless earlier, she said quietly. I hope you do not mind that I tended to him, Clint chuckled. Mind? He's usually ornery until noon. You must have magic in your hands. She flushed slightly, not used to compliments. Lani peeked from behind her mother, clutching the quilt around her. Clint knelt so he was eye level with the little girl. You feeling better this morning, sweetheart? Lani nodded. Mama says you're taking us somewhere safer. Her voice was small but hopeful, like a bird testing its wings after a storm. Clint stood, dusting off his coat. That's right. There's a ranch about 5 miles out. Big place, owned by a couple I knew back when life wasn't so quiet. They're good folks. They don't care about someone's blood or tribe. They just care if you're honest and work hard. They always need help with mending, cooking, tending animals. You'd have steady pay, food, safety. Nehara froze. Hope was one thing. Promises were another. She looked at him with cautious eyes. Why do you help us, Clint Rourke? Truly? Clint took a long breath. Because someone once helped me when I thought nobody in this cursed land gave a damn if I lived or died. I figure it's my turn to do the same. Nehara didn't reply. She simply nodded, accepting the truth, even if her heart still trembled with uncertainty. They packed what little they had. Lani held Clint's hand as they walked toward the horse, surprising him with her sudden trust. Nehara lifted her daughter onto the saddle, then hesitated when Clint offered his hand to help her mount behind him. Eventually, she placed her hand in his, climbed up, and they rode out into the crisp morning air. The trail wound through sagebrush and open plains. Lani giggled as the wind tugged at her hair. Nehara held her mother's gaze on either side, memorizing the joy she hadn't seen in her child for too long. Clint felt their warmth against his back and realized that loneliness, his oldest companion, had slipped quietly away. Halfway to the ranch, they stopped by a creek to rest the horse. Lani collected smooth stones, while Clint and Nehara stood by the water. You said you are a widow, Clint said gently. Did he fall in battle? Nehara nodded slowly. He was a proud Apache warrior, a strong man. But pride cannot stop bullets. Her voice wavered but did not break. After he died, my people scattered. Some were forced west, some hid in the mountains. I tried to survive in the towns, but they see me as nothing more than trouble. Clint stared at the water swirling around his boots. Then they're fools, he said quietly. All I see is a woman who would walk through fire for her. "No, child," Nahara's eyes glistened, "and all I see is a man who shows kindness without asking for anything." She paused, then added softly, "That is rare." When they reached the ranch, smoke curled from the chimney, and the smell of coffee drifted through the air. The owners, Martha and Henry Carver, greeted Clint warmly, their eyes widening when they saw the mother and child. Clint explained their situation without hiding the truth. Henry nodded firmly. "Plenty of work here. If you're willing, we're grateful for the help." Martha knelt beside Lani and brushed her cheek with motherly gentleness. "You must be hungry, dear. Come inside." For the first time, Nahara allowed herself to breathe. She turned to Clint with a look so full of gratitude it nearly knocked him off balance. "You saved us," she said. "No," Clint replied softly. "You saved yourself when you gathered the courage to ask for help." Days passed, then weeks. Nahara proved to be a tireless worker, mending fences, sewing torn saddles, preparing meals that even Martha praised. Lani gained weight, color returning to her cheeks as she learned to feed chickens and ride a pony around the yard. Clint visited often, helping Henry with the cattle. But truth be told, he came for Nahara. Something unspoken pulled him to her, something gentle, something steady, something that made him wonder if his wandering days were ending. One evening, after the sun dipped behind the hills, Nahara walked with him past the barn, where fireflies danced in the shadows. "I owe you more than words can repay," she said. Clint shook his head. "You don't owe me a damn thing." She stepped closer, the lantern light reflecting in her dark eyes. "Then let me say this not as debt, but truth. You are a good man, Clint Rourke. A rare man." Clint swallowed, unsure what to do with the warmth rising in his chest. "I just did what was right," he said. She smiled faintly. "Many men know what is right. Few choose to do it." He looked at her then, really looked, and saw not just a widow fighting for her child, but a woman with strength carved from hardship, with a heart that still knew how to hope. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She didn't pull away. Instead, she lifted her hand to his, holding it against her cheek as if memorizing the moment. Lani's laughter echoed from the porch, and the sound wrapped around them like a promise of safety, of family, of a future neither of them had expected to find. Clint realized he didn't want to ride away anymore. Not from them. Not from this place. Not from the life slowly forming between sunrises and quiet nights. And so the wandering cowboy stayed, not because he needed shelter, but because he had found something worth staying for. A brave widow, her bright-eyed daughter, and a chance at the kind of life a man doesn't find twice. If you want more stories like this, stories of survival, hope, and the wild American frontier, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button and join the journey. Your support keeps these tales alive.